We're going to bring in the president's pollster, Jim McLaughlin. Jim, let me tell you the interesting thing here. I woke up this morning and I saw two kind of, I don't even call them polls, right? It's forecasting models. You have the 538 model that says Biden wins 54 out of 100 times of their various analyses. That's polling, that's economic data, whatever. Okay. But then you got CNN reporting on Trump having a path to 330 electoral votes. Obviously, 270 needed to win. He got 306 in 2016. Those are two very, very different analyses of the race. Where do you see this?
Yeah. And look, Sean, you and I don't usually agree with CNN, but I think here there's no question the CNN model is much more accurate with the way the race stands right now. And think about it. A poll just came out yesterday. Donald Trump is ahead in Virginia. Donald Trump doesn't have to win Virginia.
Yeah.
And you look at it too, there's a lot of these battleground states, especially the Sun Belt battleground states. I haven't seen a legitimate published poll that in a place like Arizona, in a place like Nevada, or a place like Georgia, where Joe Biden is ahead. He's just not ahead. And we've basically been seeing this pretty steadily since the fall. And I tell people where you really saw the change was a few weeks after October 7th, because that is one of the key issues where Donald Trump has a significant advantage over Joe Biden is keeping America safe. And people saw that with October 7th. They saw it with Afghanistan. And now we're also seeing Donald Trump has a significant advantage over Joe Biden when it comes to economic issues. That's why he's got the lead in the polls. And I tell people, look, if you don't believe Donald Trump's on offense, look where the Democrats are campaigning. You're seeing Jill Biden. You're seeing Joe Biden. They're going to places like Minnesota, where a Republican hasn't won since Richard Nixon in 1972. So they're being forced to defend Democratic-leaning states.
And how much do you think from an advisory standpoint, to your point, he doesn't need to win Virginia. He doesn't need to win Minnesota, right? What, from a campaign tactical standpoint, you and I have talked about this before, where you put your money and your time says a lot about your campaign. Where are we going to see Donald Trump and J.D. Vance in the next 3.5 months?
Oh, I think, again, you're going to see them on offense. You're going to see them, of course, in the all-important battleground states. And I think one of the places where J.D. Vance is going to be a huge help to the campaign is in flyover country. The battleground states, the all-important, remember they used to call it the blue wall of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin? J.D. Vance is going to be able to connect with those voters in the same way Donald Trump has been able to connect with those voters. I think that's where you're going to see them spending a lot of time. But you're also, poll just came out a few weeks ago. Donald Trump was up by a point in New Jersey, in blue New Jersey. New York Times Siena poll has Donald Trump within single digits in New York State, where Joe Biden won last time by 23 points. And those events that Donald Trump had, forget the polls, he had over 100,000 people show up to his event in Wildwood, New Jersey, for a Republican candidate for president. Then he had enough tens of thousands of people show up in the South Bronx, a Democratic stronghold. That's the kind of energy, that's the kind of enthusiasm you're seeing right now for Donald Trump's campaign.
You know, you brought up J.D. Vance, and a lot of the media has been blowing their minds about, well, what did J.D. Vance add to the campaign, and what was this and what was that? I've made it very clear my case on J.D. Vance and why I thought he was a good pick. Walk us through, from your standpoint, what does J.D. Vance add or not, and why was he a good pick?
Oh, I think he was a great pick. And the reason why I think he's a great pick, you know, he's everything the Democratic Party used to be. He came up, literally, he's everything the Democrats used to be. They would go nuts over a candidate like J.D. Vance years ago. He came up from nothing, a broken family. His family is on welfare. He works his way through college. Then he goes to Yale Law School. And, oh, by the way, in the meantime, he goes into the Marines after September 11th to defend his country. Then he's a successful businessman, and then he goes and starts a not-for-profit. It's amazing what he's done in his short lifespan, not to mention he's a U.S. Senator now. I think he's the perfect candidate because he's going to be able to echo the America First agenda, and he's a living embodiment of the American dream. I think it's a home run choice. And you know what? After tonight, when he delivers, I'm really, really excited about his speech tonight. I've seen some parts of it. I think he's going to be terrific.
Okay, you've seen the parts. What does he focus on?
I think he's going to focus on restoring the American dream. He's going to talk about his personal story. And that's why I think J.D. Vance, I don't think there's any question, that's why he decided to run for U.S. Senate, was because he saw the American dream is becoming almost unattainable under the failures of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the Democrats. Between their crazy Green New Deal energy policies that, by the way, they hurt working class Americans. They hate
Right.
workers. That's who they hurt the most. And you know who they help the most? They help Vladimir Putin in Russia, and they help Xi Jinping in China. I mean, that stuff is just madness. Not to mention, J.D. Vance believes in lower taxes. He believes in fair trade. He believes in trade. There's all this talk about him being an isolationist and all this other kind of nonsense. That's not true. He believes in exactly what Donald Trump believes in. He believes in fair trade that helps America.
I'm glad you said that because I saw an NBC News report today. They're like, he's anti-Ukraine, he's anti-this. And I don't buy that. It's not that he's against it. He just doesn't want to be suckered, spewing away U.S. tax dollars with no mission that's in sight, that no plan for success. That's called common sense. And saying I don't want trade deals that screw American workers is not anti-trade. The media is trying to demonize him. Shocker. But I think that we need to make sure that people understand that J.D. Vance is for common sense solutions and outcomes, not for just giving the house away. But I want to ask you about a message that I thought was interesting. The president had, by all accounts, it was Donald Trump himself that invited Sean O'Brien, the Teamsters president, to speak. I get the imagery of this, okay? It's the first time a Teamsters president addresses the Republican convention. It shows Trump's bringing in new voices and new people. But a lot of conservatives were not happy with a guy who stands on stage at the Republican National Convention and goes after tax cuts, corporations, and so where's that balance between wanting to appeal to new peoples and inviting the heads of unions that are anathema to what our party should and our movement, frankly, stands for?
You know why Sean O'Brien came? And you know why Donald Trump invited him? Because in spite of the democratic nature of these unions, folks like Sean O'Brien, they get it. More than half their union membership, especially in these private sector unions, they're voting for Donald Trump.
I know. No.
And
I get that. But they could have had Jim, they could have had a Teamster. They've done a great job with everyday Americans. I get having a Teamster that says, hey, I'm a member of the Teamsters. Having the president of the Teamsters get up there and bash conservative principles, I think turned off some folks.
You know what? I always tell everybody, you know what Donald Trump, and you know this, Sean, because you know him really well. Donald Trump is a great listener. He's a great listener. He talks to people all day. He wants to have different perspectives on people's lives. You know, the whole idea of no taxes on tips, that came up from Donald Trump talking to the workers at his hotel properties. He knew
I know.
He knew it was a good idea. He was talking to them, and they're saying it's ridiculous how this IRS is going after these poor waiters and waitresses on their tips. So that's why he brings in a Sean O'Brien. And look, obviously the president doesn't agree with everything that Sean O'Brien says. But you know what we're for on the Republican Party that the Democrats aren't for? We're for free speech. And we want to listen to these folks. We're not going to give them everything they want. It's like I always say with Donald Trump, you know what? He's a great listener, but he's never stage managed. Because at the end of the day, Donald Trump is going to do what he believes is best for the country. And both him and JD Vance, you've seen them change on issues over the years because Donald Trump, he does what he thinks is going to work. Remember, they told us his tax cuts weren't going to work. They were going to bankrupt the country. Those tax cuts, could you imagine what would have happened when COVID hit? If we didn't have his tax cuts and our economy was roaring along, the only reason we were able to recover was because of Donald Trump's strong economy that he gave us with the taxes, the deregulation, and the energy independence. And that's what him and J.D. Vance are going to restore to the country.
Yeah, I get it. And I listen, at the end of the day, he's got a strong record, Donald Trump does, of doing the right thing policy-wise, standing up for conservative principles. In fact, I would argue the most conservative president in my lifetime, and I would probably put that up against any. What has changed first since the debate in terms of the mood of the country? There were all these people that thought because Biden basically had a horrible debate that the race would shift and the polling would freak out. I've always believed that it's pretty cemented. If you like Joe Biden, you're not just going to abandon him. I mean, you might abandon him, but you're not voting for Trump. The base. I'm talking the base here. Yeah. Same thing with Trump. And so were you shocked about what movement occurred post debate, and what do you think has changed since then?
I wasn't shocked, and I told a lot of people, look, you're not going to see it right away, because I think half of America was in shock when they saw that debate. They knew that, I mean, people are saying, you have John Kareem Pierre is telling us that she can't keep up with Joe Biden. They were telling us how energetic he is and all that other kind of stuff. And you saw it firsthand. I think a lot of Democrats didn't realize how bad off he was. But because of the time when the debate fell, I told people you wouldn't really see public opinion until after July 4th. And that's when you really started to see it. And again, there hasn't been a credible national poll where Donald Trump has not been ahead in any of those polls. I mean, even in those all-important blue wall states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, he's ahead in every single one of those states. And you've seen several polls that have come out over the last couple of days where he's actually up in Pennsylvania by anywhere from 3 to 5 points. And look, again, because what I thought was most interesting was when you asked questions like who they thought was most presidential, who they thought was most fit to be president, not my polls, CBS, YouGov, CNN, et cetera, said it was overwhelmingly Donald Trump. But where he had the biggest advantage in those polls is when they were asking about the issues that people care about most. Things like the economy, things like national security, things like border and immigration. He's got double-digit leads in the battleground states over Joe Biden on those issues. And even an issue like democracy, Washington Post poll showed Donald Trump had a double-digit lead on the issue of democracy. That's why the left and the Democrats are wigging out right now.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.